From the outside, her life looked perfect. Luxury cars, designer clothes, grand parties, she had it all. But deep down, Sophia Reynolds, the daughter of one of the richest men in New York, felt like she had nothing real. Her father, Edward Reynolds, owned Reynolds Enterprises, a multi-billion-dollar empire that employed thousands of people. To the world, Sophia was a symbol of privilege and grace. Her face appeared in magazines, her presence lit up charity galas, and her smile never faded. But that smile was her disguise, the same way her money was a cage. She often wondered, would anyone ever love me for me, not for my name? Every man she met seemed fascinated, not by her laughter or dreams, but by her bank balance. Some pretended to be kind, others faked affection, but sooner or later, the truth always came out. They wanted her lifestyle, not her love. One rainy evening, Sophia stood by her bedroom window, watching raindrops roll down the glass. Her reflection stared back, beautiful, yes, but lonely. She whispered to herself, "I can buy everything except honesty. I can have everyone's attention, but not anyone's heart." That night, she went downstairs to speak with her father. He sat in his study, reading business reports, when she walked in quietly. "Dad," she said softly, "what if I told you I want to find someone who loves me for who I really am?" Edward looked up with a gentle smile. "I'd say that's the one thing money can't buy, sweetheart." "I want to go undercover," she continued. Her father frowned slightly. "Undercover?" "Yes," she said firmly. "In our company. As an ordinary worker. No one will know who I am. I want to see how people treat me when I'm not Sophia Reynolds, the billionaire's daughter." For a long moment, Edward said nothing. Then, he leaned back in his chair and smiled proudly. "You always did have your mother's heart. If that's what you truly want, then I won't stop you. But remember, love isn't found by pretending. It's found by being honest with yourself." Sophia nodded. "I understand. I just want to feel normal for once." And that was the night the plan began. She spent the next week preparing. She learned basic customer service, took lessons on how to carry trays, and practiced speaking in a modest, humble tone. Her designer wardrobe was packed away, replaced by simple jeans, sneakers, and plain shirts. She cut her hair shorter and dyed it a shade darker. By the time she was done, the transformation was shocking, even her closest friends wouldn't have recognized her. Her father arranged everything discreetly. Through an internal connection, she was hired as a cafeteria waitress at Reynolds Enterprises. No one except her father and his assistant knew the truth. The night before her first day, Sophia couldn't sleep. She stood before the mirror, looking at her reflection, no makeup, no jewelry, no glamour. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Tomorrow, I stop being Sophia Reynolds. Tomorrow, I become Sophie." She took one last look around her massive bedroom, the chandelier above, the silk curtains, the marble floors. All signs of wealth, all things she was leaving behind to discover something priceless, true love. And so, at sunrise, the billionaire heiress stepped out of her mansion in a small gray car, dressed in a plain uniform, heading toward the company that bore her own last name. No one there would know her secret. To them, she would just be another face in the crowd, an invisible worker among thousands. But for Sophia, it was the beginning of something far greater than she had ever imagined. Not just a search for love, but a journey to discover herself. The next morning, the elevator doors opened, and Sophia stepped into a world she had only seen from the top floor, the everyday life of ordinary employees. The hum of conversations, the clatter of keyboards, and the smell of coffee filled the massive lobby of Reynolds Enterprises. No one paid attention to her, she was invisible now, just another employee in a gray uniform carrying a tray. Her name tag read, Sophie. For the first time, she wasn't Miss Reynolds. She was the new waitress. And she was perfectly fine with that. The cafeteria was huge, filled with hundreds of workers from different departments. Sophia was assigned to serve coffee, clean tables, and assist during lunch breaks. The work was simple, but exhausting. By the end of her first hour, she had already spilled water twice, bumped into a chair, and dropped a spoon. Her supervisor, a strict middle-aged woman named Ms. Turner, scolded her in front of everyone. "Sophie, watch what you're doing. This isn't a playground. Keep up or you'll be sent home early." Sophia lowered her eyes and murmured, "Yes, ma'am." She wasn't used to being talked to that way. But she reminded herself, this was part of the test. As the days passed, she began to understand how hard life really was for ordinary people. The cafeteria staff woke up before dawn, took long bus rides, and worked long hours for little pay. Yet, despite their struggles, they laughed together, supported each other, and found happiness in small things. It humbled her. During her lunch breaks, Sophia sat quietly at the far corner, eating simple sandwiches. No one knew she once dined on caviar and steak. But she didn't miss it. There was something peaceful about blending in. One afternoon, while she was serving coffee at a corner table, she met Daniel Carter, a project manager in his early 30s. He had a calm, kind face and the type of smile that made people feel at ease. When Sophia accidentally spilled a few drops of coffee near his files, she panicked. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, grabbing a napkin. But instead of scolding her, Daniel smiled and helped her clean it up. "It's okay. Accidents happen," he said warmly. That small act of kindness touched her deeply. It was the first time anyone had spoken to her gently since she started working there. From that moment, she began to notice Daniel more. He stayed late after hours, helped colleagues finish reports, and never took credit for others' work. He was smart, hardworking, and, most importantly, humble. Sophia found herself waiting for his lunch hour every day, secretly hoping to see him walk through the cafeteria doors. One day, as she placed a cup of coffee on his table, Daniel looked up and said, "You're new here, right? I don't think I've seen you before." "Yes," she replied nervously, "I just started a few weeks ago." He smiled. "You're doing a great job. The coffee's always perfect." That compliment made her blush. It was such a simple sentence, but it meant everything to her. No one had ever appreciated her for her effort, only for her name. As days turned into weeks, small conversations turned into friendly chats. Daniel would sometimes stop by the counter to ask how her day was going. And though she tried to act calm, her heart raced every time. The other cafeteria workers noticed her soft smile whenever Daniel came around. They teased her, saying, "Looks like Sophie's got a secret crush." She laughed it off, but deep down, they were right. Sophia didn't realize it yet, but this simple connection, this man's kindness, was beginning to melt the walls she had built around her heart. And though she had come to her father's company searching for truth, she was slowly discovering something she never expected, that true love often begins in the quietest, simplest moments. The days at Reynolds Enterprises slipped by faster than Sophia expected. Every morning, she put on her plain gray uniform, tied her hair back, and stepped into a world where nobody cared about her last name. And honestly, she loved it. But what she loved even more was Daniel Carter. He was everything she had never found in the rich world she came from, kind, grounded, and genuinely good. He never bragged about his achievements, never talked down to anyone, and always had time to listen. Even when he was busy, he made everyone around him feel seen and valued. Sophia often watched him from afar, the way he held open doors for coworkers, the way he encouraged junior staff, and how his laughter filled the cafeteria like sunlight breaking through gray clouds. She didn't know when admiration turned into affection, but one day, she realized she couldn't stop thinking about him. Her mornings now started with a smile, knowing she'd see him at lunch. And when Daniel smiled back at her across the counter, her heart skipped a beat. One Friday afternoon, the cafeteria was unusually quiet. Most of the employees had left early for the weekend, but Daniel stayed behind to finish a presentation. Sophia was cleaning tables when she noticed him still sitting there, rubbing his eyes tiredly. She hesitated for a moment, then walked over and said softly, "You've been working all day. Would you like some fresh coffee?" Daniel looked up and smiled. "That would be great, thanks." As she poured the coffee, he asked, "Do you always stay this late too?" Sophia shrugged. "Sometimes. It's peaceful when everyone's gone." He nodded. "Yeah, quiet is nice." Then came silence, that kind of silence that isn't awkward, but warm. The kind that feels like two souls understanding each other without words. After a few moments, Daniel said something that caught her off guard. "You know, Sophie, you're different from most people here." Her heart skipped. "Different how?" "You actually look like you care, not just about your job, but about people. It's rare." Sophia smiled faintly. "Maybe I just like seeing people happy." Daniel leaned back, sipping his coffee. "That's a good reason to do anything in life." From that evening on, their friendship began to grow. They'd share small talks during breaks, sometimes even eat lunch together. Sophia would laugh at his little jokes, and he'd tease her about being too nice for a waitress. She never dared to tell him who she really was, not because she didn't trust him, but because she didn't want the truth to ruin the magic they were building. But keeping that secret wasn't easy. Every time he spoke about how hard he worked to prove himself, or how he dreamed of becoming a manager one day, guilt tugged at her heart. He had no idea the girl sitting across from him was the heir to the company he was striving to rise in. One evening, as they walked out of the building together, Daniel suddenly stopped near the gate. He looked nervous, his hands tucked into his pockets. "Sophie," he said softly, "I don't usually do this, but, would you like to grab coffee with me sometime? Outside of work?" Sophia's heart fluttered. She smiled shyly and nodded. "I'd love to." That night, they met at a small cafe across the street. For the first time in years, Sophia felt like a normal girl on a simple date. They talked about childhood memories, dreams, and their favorite movies. Daniel spoke about how he lost his parents young and had to build his life from scratch. Sophia listened with tears in her eyes, not out of pity, but admiration. As they said goodbye that night, Daniel smiled and said, "I'm really glad I met you, Sophie." She smiled back, whispering softly, "I'm glad I met you too, Daniel." But as she walked home, her happiness mixed with fear. She was falling in love, truly, deeply. Yet she knew that love was built on truth. And hers was still hidden behind a disguise. Would Daniel still look at her the same way once he discovered who she really was? That question haunted her every single night. Weeks turned into months, and Sophia's hidden world became more complicated. Her feelings for Daniel grew stronger every day, yet so did her fear of losing him. She knew this couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, the truth would come out, and when it did, everything might fall apart. At home, her father, Edward Reynolds, began to notice her glowing smile and soft humming around the house. He chuckled one evening and said, "You've met someone, haven't you?" Sophia blushed. "Maybe." Edward leaned back in his chair, smiling knowingly. "I just hope he's someone who loves the woman, not the heiress." Sophia nodded silently. "That's what I'm afraid of, Dad." A few days later, the company buzzed with excitement. Reynolds Enterprises was hosting its grand annual gala. It was a major event, filled with reporters, top executives, and investors from around the world. And this time, Edward announced that his daughter, Sophia Reynolds, would attend in person for the first time in years. The news spread quickly through every floor of the company. Employees whispered in hallways, "The boss's daughter is coming tonight." No one, not even Daniel, had ever seen her before. Sophia's heart raced when she heard about the event. She had kept her secret for months, but tonight, she couldn't hide anymore. Her father told her gently, "You can't live under a mask forever. Be brave. Tell him the truth, even if it hurts." That night, the ballroom glittered with golden chandeliers and elegant music. Guests in tuxedos and gowns laughed, toasted, and posed for photographs. In a quiet corner, Daniel stood among his colleagues, adjusting his tie. He had worked hard on a project that impressed the board and had been invited as a recognition of his dedication. Then the announcement echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Sophia Reynolds." Everyone turned toward the grand staircase. And there she was, Sophia, no longer the humble waitress, but the radiant heiress she truly was. Her elegant gown shimmered under the lights, and her posture carried quiet grace. The crowd clapped in admiration. But one person stood frozen, Daniel. His eyes widened as he stared at her. His mind replayed every moment, every coffee served, every laugh shared. Sophie was Sophia Reynolds, the daughter of his billionaire boss. Sophia saw the shock in his eyes and felt her heart sink. She wanted to run to him, to explain, but duty called her first. Her father took the stage and proudly introduced her. "Everyone, this is my daughter, the soul of Reynolds Enterprises. What many of you don't know is that she spent the last few months among you, learning, observing, and understanding what real life is." The hall fell silent. Murmurs began to spread like wildfire. Some gasped in disbelief, others looked embarrassed, realizing they had once ignored or belittled the same woman who now stood above them. Sophia took the microphone, her voice steady but emotional. "I didn't come here tonight as an heiress. I came as a woman who wanted to see the world beyond her wealth. I met people who judged me by my uniform, not my heart. But I also met one person who saw me for who I truly am." Her eyes searched the crowd and landed on Daniel. Their gaze locked for a moment, hers full of hope, his filled with hurt. But Daniel turned away. He felt betrayed, confused, and foolish. How could she lie to him all this time? To him, her secret wasn't just a disguise, it was a wound. Sophia's voice trembled as she ended her speech. "Sometimes, the richest people are those who have the courage to love honestly. I hope someday, someone can forgive me for not being brave enough to do that sooner." The audience erupted into applause, but Sophia's eyes glistened with tears. Because the only person whose approval she wanted, had just walked away. That night, Daniel left the event without a word. Sophia stood on the balcony, watching the city lights blur through her tears. Her secret was out, her truth revealed, but the love she had found might already be lost. The morning after the gala, Reynolds Enterprises was buzzing with rumors. Some employees couldn't stop talking about the heiress who had pretended to be a waitress. Others whispered about Daniel, the man she had grown close to. But Sophia didn't care about the gossip. The only thing that mattered was Daniel. He hadn't called. He hadn't texted. And every message she sent remained unread. Days passed, and each one felt heavier than the last. She went to work at the company's main office now, dressed in her real identity. Everyone treated her differently, polite, respectful, but distant. The same people who once ignored her as Sophie now smiled nervously whenever she passed. It made her feel lonelier than ever. Every evening, she thought about Daniel. His kindness. His laughter. The way he made her feel seen when no one else did. And every time, guilt crushed her heart all over again. Finally, one night, Sophia decided she couldn't keep running from this. If she didn't fight for him, she'd lose him forever. So, after work, she waited outside his department. When Daniel stepped out, she called softly, "Daniel, please. Just hear me out." He paused but didn't turn around. "Why, Sophia? So you can explain how you lied to me every single day?" His words stung, but she forced herself to speak calmly. "I didn't lie because I wanted to deceive you. I did it because I wanted to find something real. Daniel turned, his expression torn between anger and sadness. You could have told me the truth from the beginning. Would you have believed me? She asked quietly. If I told you I was a billionaire's daughter pretending to be a waitress, would you have still looked at me the same way? Daniel hesitated. She was right, it would have sounded like a ridiculous game. But still, his heart ached. He had trusted her completely. Sophia stepped closer, tears brimming in her eyes. I was tired of fake smiles and shallow people. I wanted to meet someone who didn't see my money, my name, or my father's company, just me. And I did. That person was you. Daniel stared at her, his anger melting into confusion and pain. He wanted to stay mad, but her words pierced straight through him. I don't know if I can just forget everything, he said quietly. I'm not asking you to forget, she whispered. I'm asking for a chance to start again. As Sophia, not as a waitress, not as an heiress, just me. Silence filled the space between them. Then, Daniel sighed deeply. He looked into her tearful eyes and finally said, You're impossible to stay angry at, you know that? Sophia let out a soft laugh through her tears. So, does that mean you forgive me? He smiled faintly. It means I'm willing to try. Relief washed over her like sunlight after a storm. She reached out, and he took her hand. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. But it was honest, and that made it beautiful. Months later, Sophia continued working at Reynolds Enterprises, not as a figurehead, but as a leader. She introduced fairer employee programs, raised cafeteria wages, and personally thanked the staff who once worked beside her. She had seen what real struggle looked like, and it changed her forever. Daniel, meanwhile, was promoted to department head. He earned every bit of it through his hard work, not because of his relationship with Sophia. They built their bond slowly, with honesty, laughter, and respect. And every evening, as they left the office together, Daniel would tease her with a grin. So, Miss Billionaire, want to grab a poor man's coffee again? Sophia laughed every time. Because in that moment, she wasn't the heiress of a billion-dollar empire. She was just a woman who had found what she had been searching for all along, true love. She finally understood something her father once told her. Real love isn't about what you have. It's about who you are when everything else fades away. And now, Sophia Reynolds, once a lonely heiress in disguise, had everything she ever wanted. Not because she was rich, but because she was loved, truly and completely, for who she really was.